that's not a problem. Okay, charting and dashboarding. So we are not going into any project from a coding perspective. We want to go straight into visualization. And there are two ways of going into charting, looking at the charts you already have or starting a new charts. One is your chart list, which you find in the main menu on the left, where you also find your projects, your list here, where you can manage your existing list and where you can create a new chart. And since we also talk about dashboards, the same goes for the dashboards. You have a dashboard list here. When I click on manage, I can see here my dashboards. I can search in them. For example, if NPS dashboards, I could just type NPS and then would have to find two dashboards. So this is a typical way if you have already charts, or even if you want to start a new chart. But the most common way of starting a new chart would be from a project. So I will enter a project that's already prepared. So there is data in it, and the data is already coded. So you probably know the way how to get to your project. I'm here in my cockpit. And rather than going to the coding view and working with my data, we want to visualize. And visualizing starts usually with creating a chart or a set of charts. In this case, you can already see I have some charts prepared. There's actually a longer list of charts in here. So if you work in your cockpit and you haven't created a chart, this would be an empty space where you can, by clicking on new chart, create a new chart. And the exact same mechanics work for the dashboard. So if I click on dashboards, here I only find two prepared dashboards. If I want to create a new one, I just click on new dashboards. So this is the general starting point when you start with a chart. Although you already see a chart here, and you can have this standard chart shown in different chart types. These are just visualizations. If you want to work on a chart, apply filters, do segmentations, you would create a new chart. So let's do that. So I click on new chart, and then I'm coming into this charting environment. And what you see here, usually, obviously, your chart board. And then you can here select the type of chart you want to work with. All the charts have certain things that are very similar from the whole handling. But of course, since the charts are different, the data layout is different, they also have obviously differences. We will not be able to go into all of them today, but we encourage you to play with it, build some chart, and you will find it's very playful and creative. And when you get stuck, always the hint of how you get in touch with us. If you go to the question mark here, you can visit our help section, you can restart the tutorial, or you can open a chat where you can speak with us directly. So if you get stuck and you have a question after the session or when you work on your charts, and of course any other question as well, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Back to the charting. This is the typical chart. We call it the working horse because a bar chart can be used for pretty much everything. And as I mentioned, all these charts have very many similarities. One is that they all are interactive. That means you can often zoom in. In this case, price is the main category, but there are codes underneath price, so I can just click on it and have these underlying categories shown. And you can also, I just showed it once, but of any chart element, any category or code, you can always click on it, and then the underlying verbatims will be shown. In this view, you cannot amend the verbatims, you can just read them, you see how they are coded, and you can, for better reading, for example, sort them by certain categories like sentiment or something like that, and then you can go through them. Okay, let's go back to the chart. The bar chart, as I said, is like the standard. And before I explain the other chart types, I would like to show you how you segment, for example, your data. So provided you upload it together with your open-ended questions, different auxiliary variables, you can use them for segmentations and for filters. So here you see already the segment menu. There are different ways of segmentation. One is a very simple one. You click on here, and then you can segment your data by sentiment. These three main sentiments: negative, positive, and neutral. You can also segment by categorical columns. So if you have any categories uploaded with your data, in my case, I have, for example, this is just for the background, it's a Net Promoter Score study for a mobile carrier. So I have, for example, different mobile carriers, and I can show the data by these different mobile carriers. And of course, I can also segment, since it's an NPS study, by my NPS score and show them by detractors, passives, and promoters. So this is one way of benchmarking, of showing the data by different segments. If I leave the chart setup and have decided to keep this chart, and I go back, I have the full chart menu. I can see here all the 3 segments. One important part is, if I work on the chart, it's not automatically saved. So if I want to keep that chart, I can give it a name. I call it new chart demo. The demo is missing. And then I save it, and then my chart is saved. And this, of course, goes for all the charts and all the dashboards. So if you create something new, you want to keep it, you click on save, and then it will be available in your chart list, which I showed in the beginning, as well as in your dashboard list, provided it is a dashboard. If you, for example, like that chart, and you would say, like, I created this chart already, and I would like to change it a little bit, you can always use this button here. You go to save, and you can do save as new, and then I save a copy of that chart. I can give it another name or keep it as a copy, and then I have another chart created which looks exactly the same as the previous one, and then I can apply, for example, a filter. So let's say I have done this segmentation here by the NPS score, and I would like to look at this chart by an individual mobile carrier. I go to add filter, and I select here which filter I like. Let's say I do the T-Mobile chart here, select T-Mobile. You always see, okay, this is T-Mobile. If you do a mouse over, it always tells you a filter by that question is applied. So this chart is now filtered by T-Mobile, shown by these 3 segments. So I can go back. The chart is saved as a copy. Instead of copy, I can type T-Mobile. And then I have my T-Mobile chart, I save it, and it will occur in my chart library. And that you also believe me that it is true, I will go back to the project. Just a little hint, that is sometimes not so easy to see. Underneath this segment button, you always find a shortcut to your project. So if I click here, I'm back in my project cockpit, and the new charts are always added to the top. So I see here new chart demo T-Mobile and new chart demo. So let's go back to the charting view. That is by clicking on a chart, I'm back into this demo, and now I can play with the chart. I can use the settings, I can change the colors, I can change the label sizes, I can play with that, I can read that better, and there are all sorts of things. I will not go through all these individual items, but I encourage you to use that and play with it. And as I said, if you get stuck, don't hesitate to reach out, and then we will talk to you. This is the axis mending, so you can change the labels on these axes. Instead of codes, you can write, I don't know, categories. Oops, sorry. Categories, and then you see categories immediately here. You can change the label sizes if you make them, or you can do the max label size so that you have all of them shown by the full wording, and so on and so on. There is also an interesting thing before I introduce the other charts to you for the bar chart. A very interesting tool is because sometimes behind one chart there's actually several charts. In this case, you can also use a stacking there's the stacking version of the chart, so you can not have just an individual single bar chart. You can also have a stacked bar chart, or you can have it to 100% stacked bar. Of course, that very much depends on your data layout, whether that is sensible. But that is behind it. So again, always a good idea to play a little bit, and when you get stuck, you let us know. Let's go back to the chart setup. So that is back to the main entry. I mean, of course, this chart remains like that until I change it, but I would also like to show you the other chart types. So bar chart is fairly obvious. You can use it for segmentations, for benchmarking, for comparisons, for showing ascending order, occurrence of codes. Yes, I would like to show you one crucial thing, which is very, very interesting. I used it don't, I'm sorry, not this is don't sort. I want to go back and go to the stackings, which is here. I take the stacking out, and that is something I wanted to show you again that applies also for all the charts, these plot categories. That's very important or very interesting. If I usually show my charts, they are shown by category, and then I can zoom in and see the individual codes. Sometimes I maybe don't want to show the category. Maybe I want to show the codes alone without a category, I just take a click on this chart, and then it shows it alone. That doesn't look very nice because unfortunately I went onto sorting, and then I go sort by frequency, and now you see again it looks a little bit better. Again, the segmentation is not so good here. Take out the segments, and then and then you see it again sorted in ascending order. Let's go back to the chart setup, what I actually wanted to do, and show you another chart. This is our line chart, which is mostly used for showing timelines. So if you want to observe your coding categories over time, then you can use this chart that carries a date underneath. So this can be used provided you have a date. So if you, for example, use our integration tool for analyzing reviews from review websites, the date is already provided. But if you have, if you track the date, if you have continuous surveys or something like that, then you can always use the date column, and then you can look at your progression of the analysis. This line graph can be amended. You can show it on a daily basis, you can show it on a quarterly basis or on a yearly basis, and you can also use different types of selections here. You can use the date filter. So here is my date variable, and here I can filter that by provided periods like quarters, months, and dates, or you can use a custom period. For example, you just say, I would like to look at this data for a particular year. Let's say this is the year 2020, which you are interested. You just enter your date. So I have now the entire year, I apply it, and now I only have the data for the year 2020 on a quarterly basis. We only track two quarters, and we have them here. This line chart is also like the bar chart, which has some features which turn one chart type into a slightly different one. This can be also played with. So for example, in the general setup, you can get rid of the pie. The pie always shows you one data point. So in this case, I have these two data points, this Q3 and Q4, and that would be also represented by the line. But if you would like to look at the progression only, you can take off the pie chart and you only have a line chart to look at it at a progression like that. It looks maybe more interesting if I take that out and have my entire data period. So you can nicely see one category here is developing and suddenly increasing. There is another interesting feature here. If you go to Access, you can also show these charts stacked, and then you have this nice area diagram. So it's sometimes nicer to see a certain development, how a certain category moves. So this is here under Access. You can do the stacked chart and look at it like that. Let's go back again to the chart setup. So I showed you the bar chart and the line chart, and then we have this what a beautiful chart to give you a nice overview of how your coding pans out. So here you see all the categories with the individual code, and the size of the individual tile shows you the occurrence. So this can be used as a broad overview. Also an interesting feature which applies not only to this chart but to all. You can always decide whether you would like to show all the categories and codes, or whether you maybe want to have an exclusion or inclusion of certain categories. If you go into your general setup, on the bottom, you always find this feature which codes to be plotted. So if you choose exclude selection, I can actually unvote certain categories or codes. So if I, for example, say I would not like to show the smaller categories like coverage or mobile or love, then I take them out and they will disappear from my list. And the same goes for individual codes. And of course, you can do that from the other way around. You can actually choose only selection. So if I go to all again and go to only selection, I show only this selection, or I can actually unvote this one, take this off, and then start afresh, and always have here my coding overview, which I can use for my selection. And again, that applies for all chart types, not only for that. Let's go back to the setup before we have a quick look into the dashboards. Pascal, if there are any questions which are fitting, then please.
Yeah, there will actually be one, but the person who asked it currently has audio issues, so maybe we put it at the end.
Okay, let's wait until the end. Maybe then the audio issues are being resolved, and then the asker of the question can hear them. Okay, the last chart I want to show you is the relationship chart. I assume that is not shown because I did some sort of a selection. Let me start afresh. If I have nothing saved or don't want to save anything, I just get out of here. I go back into the new chart, and this one was the fourth of the charts. I didn't mention that these 4 charts here are exclusively for coded data. These 2 charts underneath, we touched them briefly, they also include numerical data. The relationship chart, just briefly, is there for showing you the relations between certain codes and categories. So the larger the point, the higher the occurrence, and also you can see by the thickness of the line with which codes there is which codes they are associated. That can sometimes be a very interesting tool to analyze which topics and which codes have been mentioned together. So this is a very analytical, powerful chart. Briefly about these charts, this is a simple gauge chart where you can show any types of averages. So you can show your NPS score, or you can show your customer satisfaction score. So you can choose the format here or just a simple average. And here is the question. And again, you have filter possibilities, or you could filter that by different brands and then put them next to each other on a dashboard. How to do that, I will show you in 1 second. The last chart I want to mention is the driver chart. We have integrated driver analysis based on a multiple regression in the background, where we of course need a target variable. In this case, we have the NPS score. How likely are you recommending? And then the analysis is based on a multiple regression with this target variable. So how influential, how impactful are the codes and categories onto this in this case NPS score. So you see the frequency on the vertical axis, and on the horizontal axis you see the impact, the relative impact on the score. So the further right and the higher you are, the more impactful you are, because it's often mentioned and it has a large impact. So this could be areas which are very strong, which you should be strengthened to increase your, in this case, your customer satisfaction measured by the NPS score. So these are the sets of charts we have. We haven't got that much time, so I will do a quick jump back to my project, and I want to briefly show you how to use those charts. So I'm assuming these charts, once you're happy with them, you save them. I saved some now and I saved some before. And based on these charts, you can create dashboards. The dashboards are there to put several charts together to show conclusions and make, to basically tell a story. I have a prepared dashboard, which I want to use. Again, this is based on this NPS data. As I mentioned earlier, this gauge chart shows you the score, in this case, the NPS score. We compared it here by T-Mobile and Verizon, 2 of the carriers, and put them next to each other. The dashboard usually starts obviously as a blank screen. In this case, it's already prepared, and it has 3 different elements. One element is this text element. So you can always add a text element to your dashboard to write an action title, to do a structural break, or something like that. How to add such an element, I will show you in a second. Then you can add all your charts from this project, but from your entire chart list. All the charts you have access to, you can put on your dashboard and draw the comparisons. And as I scroll down slowly, you can see all the charts I've shown you. This is our overview chart, the tree map. It's in here. The nice thing about the dashboard is if you see the chart and you have included it into the dashboard, you can always go back to the chart and edit it here. If I click on that button, I want to do that just briefly. I'm back into the chart editing modus, and now I can, for example, add a filter or change the colors or do something I like. In this case, I'm going back to my dashboard. I start here on the top again, and I just wanted to show you we have different charts by different cuts. We broke them here with a text element and so on. And the North Start for a chart is on a blank, and then you just click on it, and then you can add a new element. And there are 3 elements to add: existing charts. If I click on it, I go into my chart list and I can select from there. I can select the text item. This is for text elements, for any written or structural information. And then we have this verbatim sample, which basically shows a certain selection of verbatims. You can put all your verbatims or a selection. And if I choose that, it looks like this. So you see a selection of verbatims, maybe a code which you want to point out specifically, you can put it here. People can filter it and can look at it. So this is how you create dashboards. Fairly simple. You can add as many charts as you like. And don't forget to save your dashboard. So if you make any changes, here's the save button. You save it here. And as for the charts, you can also use any type of filter. So if I would like to filter, for example, the entire dashboard, I can use this overall filter, and it works the same way as I showed before. For example, if I go by date, if I say like I would like to see that by a particular date, I go here to my custom period, I make a date selection, and then obviously all my data will be shown by that particular filter, and will be selected by that. Let's quickly do that for demonstration purposes. Let's go to the year 2020 again, which I had before, and I know I have enough data from that period that we don't go out of data. 2020, 12, then I apply the filter, and now you will see some changes, I hope. Yes, exactly. So the NPS dropped. I think this is just you notice sometimes these things, they think this is a glitch in the data here probably because there's not enough provider. That can happen with a date filter, but just to demonstrate the idea, you can obviously filter by all sorts of other things. And if you take off the filter, then you're back to your main dashboard. And one last feature I want to show you, and then we go to your questions, that is the sharing possibility. Once the dashboard is created, you can share it, and you can share it within your organization or even outside. And outside means you can share it with people who maybe don't even have access or to a Caplena or an account. So when you choose this option here, enable shared link, you can enable or disable that. You can then, if you enable it, obviously you can click on copy URL, and then you can copy it as a shareable link, either the entire URL, or if you have a specific filter, if you say to a colleague or a client, look, this is how the data from last year look, I just filtered it for you, then you can even share a filtered URL, and then the person who receives the URL can click on it, and they can not go back and change the charts, but they can use the dashboard the same way I'm using it here. That means they can click on the data and read the verbatims. They can apply a dashboard filter, and they can go through and see the entire data set. So you can prepare special dashboard for somebody to share it, to point out something specifically, or as the delivery of your study. And I think that's everything from my end. We have still 5 minutes left for questions. Pascal, I don't know if is our listener back with full audio?
Is back, yeah. So the first question that was there was if you have, let's say you have certain categories that only have, I don't know, a couple of mentions. He mentioned less than 25. Could you exclude these?
Yeah, you want to answer that yourself, Pascal, or shall I?
Yeah, sure. So basically, as Anders showed, you can exclude a couple of categories or a couple of codes, any number that you would like. But this is not based on the count. Simply, you enter them here, and this just reflects what is shown in the chart. So the percentages are not affected. Yeah, you can do this. We're working on sort of more like thresholds that you could select if you really want to avoid having any kind of segment below a certain number. That is a feature that is on the roadmap, but not available at the moment.
But for the bar, for example, you could easily work your way through. If you put it in a bar chart, you see, for example, if I would like to exclude these categories, if you have it shown in ascending order, you could easily say, okay, I exclude network and communication, and you just go through here, network and communication. If I find that quickly, here you go, and then I have excluded that, and that would be a simple way of getting rid of it fairly easily, huh? And then you can work it from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, next question. Can you add the average per year in the line chart?
Pascal, would you like to answer, or shall I? At the moment, I just do it. At the moment, you cannot do that, but it's again something on our roadmap, because this is something, lots of clients asked before and wish for, and that's something we are planning to do. So hopefully that is soon there. Pascal, you know better than I when that will be available. I think in end of quarter 2. Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, at least that's what we're aiming for. But just to clarify, if the average is meant the average count per code, then you can obviously do it already. In the setup, just select then the yearly aggregation. Now go to setup.
Yeah.
Chart setup, and then select year here.
Yeah, of course.
So that aggregates per year. But if you want to have the overall count, that is in the works, there will be a completely separate chart, just evolving, the number of responses that you ingested.
Yeah, so okay. This would be the averages basically on an annual basis. And for this type of things, if you, for example, look at this kind of average, and then you look also at the data within the year, it's always a good idea to play a little bit and, for example, combine it. You can save this chart here as your average chart, and then you create another line chart for the individual years, and you can place them in the dashboard next to each other, and then you can basically tell a story. Any other questions?
Then there's another cool question from Leah. How can I censor parts of verbatims or whole verbatims in my dashboard? Because her data contains some PII. Yeah, it's actually a really good question. So like one way would be, for example, to assign a specific code and then exclude that with a filter. So you would assign a code PII or something, or contains name or something, and then to all the charts add a filter, excluding or including all the other codes. Yeah, I'm thinking about another way. Maybe I'll reach out to you, Leah, if I find another
yeah, but that would be probably the best way. You go into your code book, you create your, as Pascal just said, like your PII filter here, and then you go back to your charts, and then you use either a category filter it by category and exclude that entirely, or use the other feature I just showed you when you go to general and do the exclude selection. That's also a good one, just coming across that. For the filter, you have the additional column. So that is all the data you delivered with your coded or with your open end. So like in this case, we have mobile carrier, smartphone brand, wave, date. And then you have the standard fields, which are codes, categories, verbatim text. So you have like a free text search where you can, look for certain pointers and stuff like that, which can sometimes also help for hot alerts if that maybe includes a certain name, a particular abbreviation, then you can do it by that. Okay. Any more questions?
Yeah, there's one more from Lisa. If you can choose the language of the verbatims that are shown in the chart. So if you can show the translation or the original language.
Yeah.
So
I personally, sorry.
Yeah, this is possible. Just if you click on a bar.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
You'll see. Yeah, I mean, this project has no translation, so
it has no translation.
There is no. But here on the top left, there will be a toggle, a switch between which would show translation, and you could switch between the translated text or the original.
Exactly. So it would be here. I'm just thinking it, but I don't have anything translated in my demo account, unfortunately. Otherwise, but it looks pretty similar to this one. Just edit here and then show translation, then you can see them.
It was the same thing with the mouse.
And obviously, if you do that, you can also do that if you come from the dashboard, from that chart I just showed you in the dashboard, because that's the interesting thing if you would be sharing that it's the same for this type of chart. If you want to point at a specific selection also, then you can do that here.
Perspective, it would be, I mean, on the MacBooks, etc. It looks very nice.
Anything else? Anything?
I think that's it. There was one question about the driver analysis, but I already answered it in written form. I think we'll also send you through more resources after this. So links to your help page and to the blog, which will further help clarify this.
maybe I would, I don't know, I'm not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, if you have no further questions, I would say thank you very much for joining. Just to say, we are planning a live training pretty much every month of the month, and we broadcast the links in the known channels. And the next one will be about semi-open questions. So this is, we often work with the fully open questions like this one here, but the semi-open questions, which is about like sorting lists and bringing many text fields together from brand service and things like that. So that will be the next topic, but you will receive an invitation with a short description about the topic. And if you feel there is a topic you very much like to hear, then feel free to send us a message over the known help resources here, or the support at Caplena, or open a chat and reach out. We very much hope that you found it interesting, this brief introduction. You can see it was very packed, and there's a lot to say. We always encourage you to play and try, and if you get stuck, just reach out, and we are more than happy to help you. So thank you very much for joining. Hope to see you soon, and have a great rest of the day.
Everyone, thank you for attending.
Yeah. Give me a second, I'll just check. No, they don't.